Sinister is gone, the timeline is reset, and we are kicking off summer break in style. Today we are kicking off 7 straight episodes of Arakko Public Radio with episode 36 and the start of Shark Girl Week 2023. That's right, we are having a full week-long summer kickoff celebration named in honor of Lara dos Santos herself, the one and only Shark Girl. Today we're talking about all the X-Men comics from the week of May 3rd, 2023 as we start the approach to the Fall of X. So we are talking. Oh, no. I have to introduce us first.
Oh, of course.
Damn, I'm out of routine. I'm Dr. Papa Bear Rod, and this is the Tears of the Kingdom to my Breath of the Wild, my one and only Omega mutant, Keegan. I missed your face, my friend.
I missed your face as well, my friend. It's a sight for sore eyes.
It's been about a month since we recorded, which is by far the longest we've ever gone.
It is.
But we're back, and we're finding a way to make it up to everyone, because we're going to give you 7 straight episodes. You only had to go 3 weeks without one, but you're getting 7 in a row. In this episode, we are talking about Before the Fall, Sons of X #1, talking Immortal X-Men #11, and the free comic book day X-Men Avengers special. Also going around the Marvel Universe, because is Magneto back? Almost certainly not, but Scarlet Witch #5 sure wants us to think he is. Yes, yeah. That's what I meant to say. So, Keegan.
Yes.
We have a whole week named after her. Do you know who Shark Girl is?
You know, only in passing.
She's a creation of a man named Jason Aaron. Oh. I don't know if you remember the guy.
Familiar.
I think she's a great character. She is just what she sounds like, mutant with the power of just being half shark.
It's a great power.
Yeah. She's from this era of Wolverine and the X-Men when Jason Aaron was about 12 years ago now that he was running things. And he gets a lot of flack because people think his mutants just him coming up with whatever weird idea he could think of. And I like Shark Girl. Shark Girl's cool. And mutants are the X-Men have always had their weirdos amongst them, and that's a good thing.
You know, I think there's something to be said for a horde of weirdos, because far too many of our X people are just human-looking people. I like our weirdos too.
We need some non-human presenting X-Men. And as we've said, the X vote needs more representation from the non-human presenting. And on that note, Shark Girl for X vote 2024.
Yes.
Let's get her on there. But I will say, really, I was just in it for the pun. We're going to have plenty of games this week related to spring break, summer, and a little bit of shark related, because there are a lot of sharks in comics, and we're going to play with that a little.
Love it.
Not today, though, because we're going to ease into this with a couple really important comics.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk Before the Fall, Sons of X first, or Immortal first?
Let's just dive right into Before the Fall.
The conclusion. I am so sad, but also so excited for what's to come. Written by Cy Spurrier and drawn by Phil Noto, it opens with all the major players of Legion of X at their lowest. Legion is taking a punch, literally. The random, horrifying mutations from Legion of X are still happening randomly throughout the planet. Banshee has been separated from Vox Ignis and is aimlessly traveling the altar, while Nightcrawler is apparently carrying out assassinations on Orcus's behalf. It's revealed the beating Legion took was a simulation of Nimrod. He's been running endlessly in his quest to win the fight against Orcus. We learn they've brought many of the horrifying mutations to the Savage Land in an attempt to keep them safe until they can figure out how to undo it. Legion trains endlessly with Blindfold, and they help Banshee try to understand what happened to him. Legion recognizes it as timeline shenanigans, which he's of course super familiar with. Blindfold, Banshee, and Legion decide to visit Mother Righteous for information on where their friends are, and Banshee is confused on why he immediately recognizes her. She relays information about the aborted future and is met with skepticism over why she alone remembers it. She shows off her library of her own memories that she sent back to herself, and she shares a vision of Legion from Nightcrawler's #2, where he monologued about how real leaders lift instead of pulling or pushing. When he asks for his fate in that timeline, she fudges the truth a little by leaving out her own role in it. She then guides them to where Nightcrawler is, and in return, just wants some thanks. So they're on the Orcus Bloom, where she easily dispatches Nimrod, while Legion saves Nightcrawler. Margali, however, cuts off the Legionnaires' escape and sends them out of an airlock. Mother Righteous saves the day. Margali's confused by the betrayal, since, the entire plot of Legion of X was them working together. But, Mother Righteous has to Mother Righteous. Reluctantly, she decides to save the Legion and bring them all home. Legion points out that the Hope Sword is the only thing that can fix Kurt, which causes Righteous to reveal her intention to keep it and Legion's inability to stop her since we thanked her. As she assumes control over him, he reveals he knew everything. By picking around in his mind, it gave him a chance to pick through hers. The entire Legion attacks her, and she is forced to kill them all, not before David is able to get the Hope Sword back to Kurt. Everyone except for Legion is resurrected, fixed on Krakoa, and Legion has apparently escaped and gone completely invisible to both Mother Righteous and Cerebro. Nightcrawler, in a kind of an epilogue, takes Cyclops for a walk, revealing the painting weaponless Zin drew back in the first arc. A giant Kurt on an X-shaped crucifix in front of the Earth, and he reveals to Scott he's leaving Krakoa and giving his vote to Storm, which will come into play with our other book this week. So you made the right choice in reading this one first. There is a lot of closure in this issue.
Yeah, like a lot.
I feel like it's really a weird choice not to have just called this Legion of X 13 or Legion of X Finale. Like, I get they wanted this before the fall branding, but this would mean nothing if you picked this up as just I want to see what this fall thing's gonna be, so I'm gonna grab. It's not prologue at all. It is purely epilogue.
I think maybe it's because of the Nightcrawler's shift that it would be kind of too much to go back for one book to the
That's fair,
Legion
because
of
both
X
Red
branding.
and Immortal are going beyond one. That's totally fair. Okay. I am really kind of upset at how, I don't know if underrated is the right word. I feel like overall the X community is pretty rough on Legion of X, and it was a slow build of sorts in that everything made sense at the end. Like, all the threads seemed random. I imagine a lot of people abandoned it before seeing how it all came together. But I just can't get over how masterfully this all came together. And to me, it elevated David in a way that he has not been relevant to me in his 25, 30-year existence. This was the best he's ever been. It's been a version of Kurt we've never seen before. I know a lot of people are dying for quippy, lighthearted Kurt to be back, and it seems like that's what we're getting. I believe that's what Uncanny Spider-Man is setting up, hopefully. I wish people loved this book the way it deserves to be loved.
I agree completely. I think one of the benefits of us doing this show is we kind of have to see books through more often than not. Because I will say, very early on in the Legion of X run, I would have dropped it if not for the show. But
I imagine, I have not gone back and listened, but I think we both got pretty negative with it at different points. I don't think it was just me. Or it was just you. I think it was both.
Fairly early on, I think one of the things I said is that I'm having a hard time following it. Now, with the whole thing painted into a picture together, being able to look at the entire narrative as a whole, it is definitely a contender for like one of my favorite runs of anything. Like, Absolutely. It's just such a good, well-told story with a lot of really brilliant themes. David is the most interesting he's ever been. And yeah, swashbuckling, quippy Kurt is fun, but this was a really interesting exploration of a different side of Kurt that I think makes his character deeper.
And I think we talked about it when we were talking about Sins, or maybe it was just when that book was announced. But I feel like this earned quippy Kurt also. Like, that we've seen him dragged down so hard, it's going to make it that much more satisfying when we see him like letting go of those burdens and being his old self to an extent. And he's going to have to actually confront those feelings at some point too. So it's not like it's going to truly be quippy Kurt, but he's gonna attempt to be that version of himself again.
I absolutely, and I think it all goes back to like even with Way of X, like having to tackle this idea of mutant resurrection and death kind of meaning nothing to a deeply religious man, you know, and like with the younger mutants being so just casual about death and how much it bothered him, which it should bother him given who he is as a person. That it was a long road to walk to get to a point where we can have that quippy Kurt back. Exactly.
Speaking of the religion stuff, I can't believe how satisfying Zen's picture ended up. Because
Yeah.
we speculated for so long. I was so convinced that it would somehow tie to his like mutations, that
Mhm.
it was like she was drawing what he would eventually become or something. And for it to instead be the symbolism there, right? Is
Yeah, I
him
mean,
being
it's the
crucified in front of
Messiah
the
thing.
planet. Is yeah, it's saying he is tortured to sacrifice himself for all of Earth is what that said to me. And like my jaw dropped when I saw it. I was not expecting that. Even though I knew that they'd have to give us some reason why he left, it still just popped. And this book could do that after dragging us through such an arc for him and still completely catch me off guard was really cool.
Absolutely. I think that Kurt has had one of the most satisfying arcs and journeys through this era.
Yeah.
You know, even especially with Judgment Day as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you go Way of X into Legion of X through Judgment Day and then this, and I guess you could include Sin of Sinister, although really that was more of a hiccup for him. Like it wasn't really his story to tell. But the last, what is that, almost 3 years has been so interesting and such an evolution for a character that's been around for so long and stood for really one version of himself for so long. I really feel like Sai has reinvented him in a way, but
Hmm.
in a way that feels authentic.
Yes. It's not just I want to play with this character but do a different thing with it. It's I want to reinvent this character.
I do, and this isn't quite a nitpick corner because like I don't even know if I can properly like explain all of it, but I tried writing out everything that happened between the different Legion issues with like in relation to the Immortal X-Men issues and then the Sins of Sinister arc, and there is no way that timeline can make sense. Uh, so if you go just off horn progression and the fact that now apparently they're saying Professor X visiting in that last Legion arc was after Immortal 9, so he'd already been corrupted. But before the Sins of Sinister arc, where he's pitted, there's no way to make all the pieces line up. And
Mm.
I had sat and scribbled it out, and then I did some googling and saw other people had similarly like pieced what they could together. And like even considering the fact that in Sins of Sinister, there's the fake Nightcrawler. He's got his credit out there. Like I don't think there's a way to make it make sense unless. And I need your opinion if it's possible they even thought this far, or if they just want us to just go with it. What we read in Legion 7 or 8, 9, 10, the last 3 issues, I think is the version of the events that played out in the Sins of Sinister timeline. And that we are just meant to assume that similar, but not quite the same events played out in what is now like the real timeline. Because,
Oh.
like the Vox Ignis was in those issues, but there's things that have to be before Sins, but there's things that have to be after, and there's no way to piece everything together. Even if I saw one person had like broke it down to like, okay, if you imagine that Sins of Sinister happened between pages 18 and 19 of Legion 9, like, but then someone even poked a hole in that. So like I'm pretty sure there is zero, unless there's some savant that can piece it together, that no one on the internet so far has been able to. The only thing that makes sense to me, and it's just a nice and clean assumption, is, oh yeah, most of it just played out again. It all kind of because it was close enough to the nexus point where like the universes diverged that they happened similarly enough that we don't need to be retold what happened, that we can just assume that they played out similarly enough, blah blah blah, move on. And I think that's the only way to make it all make sense.
And I think that can definitely be like the explanation that makes sense to me, because in theory, right? In theory, the Moira reset resets to like a specific exact moment in time.
Yep.
That, you could be walking to the fridge when that happens, and then all of a sudden now you're walking to the fridge again, going to get that same roast beef sandwich or whatever, right? So like that reset.
You don't know about the reset, and you're not directly affected by one of the characters who does. Your life will play out exactly the same, right? So
yes,
so the
until
ripple,
a changed force imposes itself on your life.
Exactly. Until one of the ripples actually affects you, you're gonna be that. So yeah, that is why it's not quite nitpick corner, because I had already headcanoned it, and it seems like a lot of people on the internet are already headcanoning it that way. But I had to bring it up because it was something that in that moment was super like I swear I sat down and I had it all charted out. Now we're recording so long after they came out, I don't have my little chart I made anymore, but I had it all like but this has to happen before this. And there's at least like 4 things I could not reconcile. So
interesting.
it is what it is. Uncanny Spider-Man. I know what we said generally we're excited for it. I'm really curious if it ends up backdoor. Is he just such a powerful toy? Like when he's not actively being played, he can't just go in the toy box. He has to be taken completely off the board. Like,
I mean, that could be, it literally could be that he's too much of a question mark. You're not allowed to use him unless you're using him,
well, like you have to take him like Judgment Day. They had to finagle how to get him out of the picture, and I suppose you have to do that with every big event. So maybe Fall of X, they didn't want to have the Legion of it all, so maybe he'll be back after that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that could be.
I want him to have more of a confrontation with his dad. I
Oh,
feel like,
absolutely.
especially Fall of X is the fall of Xavier. If it really is going to be just everybody turning their back on him,
that would be incredibly important. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I believe the last time we got together, I talked about how Mother Righteous may technically be becoming my favorite X-Men villain because Sinister already is, and she's basically a better version of Sinister. I loved her in this issue.
Yeah. Between this issue and Immortal that we're going to cover, I really loved that kind of expansion of like the lore of how she works. Yeah. Really leaning into like this Fae style working of her magic.
Absolutely. In fact, we saw her basically pull one over on Margali and reveal her ability to play with her machinations, but then for that to backfire. And I would say, in a way, we saw the Essex come out in her because she basically revealed her hand way too early with David. Because if she hadn't pulled the you said thanks, so now I have access to your mind, he wouldn't be able to pop back in hers and basically resolve the entire plot. Yeah. So that was a very, very like Mr. Sinister. She was her own demise there.
I think it's the best way to really enforce that. She is of the Essex gene. Like
exactly. I loved that.
What is more Nathaniel Essex than being your own demise, hosted by your own petard? Because it happens all the time with anyone Essex involved. So
yeah, it was so beautiful when, like at first I was just like, oh, he got one over on her, and then it kind of just started coming together of like that was such a sinistery, like it played out her way because it was magic and she's the magic Sinister, but I just loved it. Such a good scene. Do we want to speculate on where he could be hiding?
I have no idea, if I'm being honest. So if you have speculation, I'm open to hearing it.
I really don't, since they literally destroyed the altar, which is where he basically hid in Sins of Sinister. Like I don't know where he could be, that he would be invisible to her and invisible to Cerebro. And I am afraid it's just a lampshade. That they just want to not have to think about him for 5 years, and then like the next office can figure out how they want to approach Legion.
Yeah.
And I really hope that's not it.
His powers are so great that he has just fully shielded himself from all kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm hoping he has a part in Fall of X, or at the very least, whatever the immediately following Fall of X thing is. It is worth sidestepping, segueing, and then we'll jump into Immortal. But I don't know, because we were gone a whole month, I don't know what week this news kind of dropped. But we did find out all of the Fall of X books are mini-series, and Fall of X is not a 1.5 long status quo like the last few have been. It is a 6-month thing. So whatever is going to come after Fall of X, whether it's post-Krakoa, as some people are apparently still afraid of, and I'm very confident it's not, or the next phase of Krakoa, which I think is much more likely, that will be in January. So it's coming much faster this time, whereas Reign and Dawn and Destiny of X were all 18 months. Fall of X is a quick 6-month thing. And I don't know if that changes any of your speculation on it as a whole.
You know, my whole thing, my fear of the end of Krakoa has nothing to do with plot, and it has nothing to do with like where things are going.
Synergy.
It's all of that damn dirty MCU synergy. It scares me every time.
When we go around, there will be a little speculation there from me, so
yeah,
we'll get there. We shall get there. Are you ready for Immortal, though?
I'm ready for Immortal.
It's weird to say, because it's been about 4 months since we've got to say Immortal X-Men, but Immortal X-Men 11, written by Kieran Gillen, drawn by Lucas Werneck, is a Storm POV issue and opens not long after the very end of Sins of Sinister Dominion. It opens with Storm, Doug, and Rasputin 4 letting Professor X, Hope, Emma, and Exodus out of the pit. Xavier protests at being shackled, as he believes going into the pit willingly should prove they don't need so many precautions. Storm's anger with him slowly becomes more apparent throughout the issue. It turns out Forge has found a way to surgically remove the sinister Trojan horse in their DNA. And Emma excitedly starts to plot when Storm cuts her off. Forge explains, while he removed what they could see, he has no way to know if it's truly Sinister's only plot. Storm reveals that while Hope can resume reviving people, they will all also have to have Forge purify them, and they will all be constantly under psychic surveillance. She also reveals that those 4 will no longer have votes on the Quiet Council, which Xavier rebuffs as he can't prove a negative. They can never prove that they're truly purified of any sinister machination. This leads Storm to show them recordings of their Council and Sin counterparts provided by Mother Righteous. Exodus immediately begs Hope for forgiveness because they both got to watch video of him murdering her ass. Xavier acquiesces and asks Storm, what's next? She explains that they will still sit on the council to keep up appearances and that Rasputin will be Chuck's personal security. With that settled, Chuck and Storm go to confront Destiny. She knew about the Moira engine and told no one. Why? She explains that she feared he would simply reboot, but at any timeline she exposed him in, Storm doesn't take that at face value. She wants to continue the confrontation, but Destiny reveals they're done, and Xavier urgently pulls Storm away as Hope and Exodus are brawling above Krakoa. Meanwhile, Mother Righteous visits Mystique and gives her the message Destiny left Sinister in Immortal X-Men. That's some drama stirring there. I can't wait for the next one. Storm convinces Hope to stop her all-out assault on Exodus by pointing out the civilians of Krakoa who look up to her are literally looking up at her, going apeshit. And once they reach ground, she gives him one last body blow and tells him to leave her the hell alone. She is no messiah. She also wholeheartedly apologizes to Storm, giving her the first glimpse of hope about those 4, the only one who's showing any signs of being able to change. Lotus Logos arrives with urgent need of her on Arakko, but not before one more confrontation, with Emma blasting Storm, pointing out that she shouldn't be so quick to judge their future selves when it took her future self 5 years to figure out anything was up. Storm takes it to heart and a few days later decides to acquiesce her vote to the one council member she trusts the most, Colossus. Okay, before we jump into the McHale of it all, because the McHale of it all, uh, wouldn't wouldn't Kate be Storm's go-to? Like, I always felt like Storm and Kate were really close, but maybe not.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like
I don't think Colossus is a terrible choice, but I don't know how earned it is in my mind. I feel like if she looked at who was left on the council, you'd think Kitty would be it. But
yeah.
have you done the math on the Kale? What votes are still in play? 4 just had their votes wiped away. We're told, nope, you guys are sinisterized. You can't vote.
So
You also have Sinister. He can't vote because he's in the pit. So that's 5 gone. Nightcrawler and Storm have both given their votes to Colossus, which gives McHale control of 3 votes through his writing Colossus's fate, right? Destiny, Kate, Mystique, and Shaw, the 4 remaining. 4 remaining would have to be unanimous to essentially stand up to McHale. And you have the extra wrinkle hanging over us all of Shaw has his deal with Mother Righteous, so he's compromised in his own way.
Yeah.
So quiet council ain't really a council anymore.
No, it's really not. Not anymore.
This was another really good issue. I will be honest, as a huge Immortal X-Men fanboy and a Gillen fanboy, anyone that's listened to any episode of this knows how much I sing his praises. I was kind of in I don't want to say hangover. Sons of X had me so wiped. This didn't hit me as hard as I think it normally would have, because it's Storm centered. Storm is the greatest character in all of fiction, as has been proven over the last couple months.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a rough decision to put these 2 issues out the same week and just wham bam us with so much really heavy stuff.
And I think though, with the Mother Righteous machinations and the thank you reveals, it's a very good duology. They complement each other very, very well and fill each other out. So I think that you could almost view them as one book.
Well, and together they're about the same length as Sins of Sinister Dominion. So if you just look at it as one epilogue to Sins of Sinister, it makes a really cool duo. You're right. Okay. Is Storm being too hard on the 4? And part 2, is Emma being too hard on Storm? 2-part question.
No to both.
Okay.
I think that Storm is right. Those 4, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But then, I think Emma makes a good point. Hey, man, it took you 5 years. You're so busy with your little, space colony that you don't pay attention to what's happening here. I think both are really well put together points.
I think for me, the thing is, I think it's totally right, and I think it was totally time for someone to properly call Storm out for her spreading herself too thin. I feel like Emma was way too flippant about Arakko here.
But that's Emma.
That's true, but she also she was part. She had a big part in creating. It was her big reveal at the Hellfire Gala. That was her cutting deep, but we all know Arakko's just as important to her on some level.
Alternatively, exactly. It was Emma's big reveal. And now Storm has taken the big reveal and has made it her own thing. And has cut Emma completely out of the narrative. So, of course, Emma's going to be flippant about it because it's not her thing anymore.
Damn, okay. That is such a... Oh. This is why I chat with you every week.
I think it's a good motivator for why she would be so dismissive of it. It's just this was my thing. It was my moment. And now you've turned it into your moment. And I don't like that.
I'm sorry. I'm just hung up thinking about that now. That recontextualizes it as an even better Emma moment. Okay. I still feel like Storm's anger is more justified
Sure.
in that Xavier's still not owning up. Like,
Chuck is being Chuck.
yeah, his ego is still so big, and I know you just talked about this one as a duology. I think of this and tomorrow because we're doing Shark Girl Week. Tomorrow's X-Men Red as a bit of a duology of just the way her rage builds, and she finally will get there.
Yeah, right. That's kind of the hardest part about doing it this way. It's like, I'm like, I want to talk about the next part.
But it's so good and it's so justified in that, like, you don't even have to punish him for his future sins, his past sins, and his present sins. He's doing it now. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with her, like, realizing she thinks she can forgive Hope. And so far, only Hope. And that she's the only one who seems to genuinely have both, like, future remorse, and she's able to own actual past mistakes. And
Well, I think part of it is, for some reason, Xavier fails to realize that it's not the sinister in him that made him do these things.
yeah,
It's the fact that the sinister in him unchained the parts of him that would already do these things.
yes,
So, like none of the Council of Sin uh really acted out of character. They just
agreed.
acted uninhibited. And it seems like Xavier really thinks he's above that
For now.
for now.
And hopefully that's the next 2 months is going to see him come to some kind of realization.
Yeah. Just Exodus getting himself absolutely rocked.
Oh, yeah, the fight itself was cool. But what does a man who built his entire identity around a faith in a person do when that person abandons them? And not in the sort of, my God has abandoned me metaphysical sense that, like, you see in the real world. But he had real concrete, like, he had his Messiah standing in front of him and she disowned his ass. Like,
Right. Like, there's, like you said, there's the, my Lord, why have you forsaken me? There's that. And then there's your Messiah looking you in the window of your soul and going, stay the hell away from
yeah.
me.
Where does he go from here?
I it's got to be a dark place, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's got to be a dark place.
gotta be dark. I want more of Shaw. They're
Yeah,
spending way too little time with him for his fun little machinations, and like, he's literally the head of hell. I want to see that.
I
Give me
want
a
more.
Shaw and Hell miniseries.
I've been wanting more Shaw ever since his Judgment Day moments and all of that. So
That's what I was gonna go into. You were talking about the way that it was them uninhibited, that it wasn't just the Sinestro. And in a way, I feel like there's not enough appreciation for the way Judgment Day and Sins of Sinister complement each other. That both were them exposing, sort of,
it's
to
laying them bare.
force them first to face, like, their own judgment of themselves, which is what many of those judgments came down to.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the inconsistencies and how the actual rules of Judgment Day worked. Many of them were where the characters were judged based off of their own self-reflection, and then now for an entire series built around, like, well, here's what happens when they're completely uninhibited, and in the aftermath of that, we're going to force them to reflect on what their uninhibited selves do.
Mm-hmm.
Those two complement each other so well. It gives these chances for, like, this is the most we've seen Chuck really dissected in a while. It's the most we've seen lots of characters dissected because it does give you glimpses from multiple angles into the darkest crevices of these characters' personas. Really
Absolutely.
cool.
Well, I mean, even when I'm talking to like my casual superhero friends who are really kind of just like the cartoons and movies kind of people,
Yeah.
you know, and they're like, hey man, what's going on with the X-Men right now? And I start telling them, I tell them about like how much of an asshole Chuck is. They're like, no way, what, really? And I'm like, yo, like, you gotta get in on this because yeah, man.
So I've been thinking a lot about how because like with Free Comic Book Day coming out, they're doing all the Gods promotion for Jonathan Hickman's new God series, and a couple of the covers have both Chuck and the Maker on them, and they have very similar helmet aesthetics, and like
I've been thinking about that for a while.
it just really stands out to me that Chuck is really reaching super villain status, not just like conflicted hero or like misled hero or the Chuck is very close to being irredeemable supervillain status,
Yeah, I agree
if not
completely.
there.
If not already there, he's very close.
No. Any final thoughts on Immortal, or do we want to leave it on Chuck might be a supervillain?
Honestly, I'm here for Chuck slander all day. Let's leave it there.
All right. The Free Comic Book Day Avengers / X-Men. And I know you didn't have a chance to get out on Free Comic Book Day. Have you had a chance to read it yet?
I did. I finally got a chance to read it, yeah.
All right, and for anyone who didn't get a chance to go out and grab it, the Free Comic Book Day Avengers X-Men book this year, the two main stories were both written by Jerry Dugan, but the X-Men half was basically a prelude to the Hellfire Gala from the adjectiveless X-Men, and then the Avengers half this year was the same day from the Uncanny Avengers creative team. So you had the entire thing, other than the very short preview of Jonathan Hickman's Gods book. But the two books, the two stories that are relevant to us, were both written by Jerry Dugan, with the X-Men half drawn by Joshua Cassara and the Uncanny Avengers half drawn by Javier Garron. The first half opens with an unknown figure breaking into the treehouse during the Hellfire Gala. At the gala, Destiny notices something is wrong and asks Mystique where Rogue is, but she's already gone. Heist is revealed to be the Captain Krakoa costume, and while the figure steals it, the original Captain Krakoa, Cyclops, bursts in to confront him. After a short brawl, the intruder dons the costume and tosses Scott's unconscious body off the tower. He flies off, and we get a to be continued box, although it's kind of weird because it's like on one half of the page and the other half of the page is it continuing in the Uncanny Avengers half. The Senate Intelligence Committee is meeting at the same time as the gala is happening, and it says the same night, but then it's broad daylight, so there's some art issues going on. But while they discuss formally align with Orcus, the new Captain Krakoa arrives, and he quotes Magneto's "You have new gods now" line while revealing he's holding grenades. So in Brooklyn, Steve Rogers catches the news about the trouble at the Capitol, and he sends an alarm on the All Avengers frequency. He discovers his bike is rigged as he crosses the Brooklyn Bridge because plastic explosives blow it, and he tosses him into the water below, where Orcus men just happen to be waiting in scuba suits with like big like hunting knives. He beats a few of them off before Rogue shows up and saves him. Turns out she didn't head for the treehouse after all. Synergy! The issue ends with Stark Tech Sentinels arriving at Emily Preston's door to arrest Deadpool's daughter, Ellie, who she adopted at the end of Dugan's Deadpool run. So that's how this Avengers team like starts coming together, because we know that Steve Rogers is on the team, we know Rogue is on the team, and we know Deadpool's on the team. So he's going to be saving Ellie, which is really cool on the one hand, because I don't know if you remember in the first or second issue of Alyssa Wong's, I asked you, like, does he still like in canon have a daughter?
That's right.
Apparently he does, and apparently she was still just living her life adopted by S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, but she's back. So one, I thought it was really neat because every year for at least 4 or 5 years, the two Marvel books have been the Spider-Man Venom one, where you get like half the prologue for whatever Spider-Man's doing, half the prologue for whatever Venom's doing, and then an X-Men Avengers one where you get half a prologue of whatever the X-Men are doing and half a prologue of what the Avengers are doing. And it was neat having them basically be one long story.
Yeah.
That just tell it from, or tell two different like teams' perspective on it. I am a little frustrated that it's really clear Dugan is just going for the trifecta of crossovers. I I've always joked that whenever writers get two books of in the same company, you know they're headed for a forced crossover, and clearly Dugan's going for the triple. He like we're gonna get just Uncanny Avengers, X-Men, Iron Man story where we're gonna have to get all three books for 3 months or whatever it is that they're crossing over because they'll be so intertwined and like cool, but also not cool.
Right.
I liked the Captain Krakoa like heist half the story quite a bit. I thought that
Mhm.
was well told. Um, obviously the Hellfire costumes, which were fresh reveals, I'm pretty sure those weren't among the ones we got covers for or whatever. Both looked awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I I can't figure out who that guy is.
Neither can I.
Like I feel like it's a distinct enough look. It's got to be implying somebody, but then I haven't seen no speculation either. So maybe the line where he says like I'm just a man was supposed to be taken at face value, and he really is someone we've never seen before. But
It might be. It's because well, the thing, because it was what? It's like he has the gray like high and
great
tight.
flat top, yeah.
Yeah. The only other guy I could think of is like what, Hammerhead?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe like a Thunderbolt Ross type character. I got
Yeah.
racking my brain for who from that realm because I think Thunderbolt's still dead. I'm not sure. I lose track.
But just like gray flat tops are not
Yeah.
that prevalent, you know?
Well, and like as you're reading it, you're supposed to start out assuming that it's someone we know because Destiny gives that line to Mystique, the like an old soldier's back on the board or something. But
Yeah.
then it's revealed because Rogue went to Captain America. That's probably Steve Rogers. That was the old soldier she was referring to, hypothetically, unless
Hypothetically.
she was referring to the heist. Like that's intentionally left vague because it's the two separate halves of the story. But
And because it's Destiny.
I don't like where when I can't speculate. Like I want to be able to speculate on who the hell that is.
Yeah, I have no idea. I was racking my brain and I couldn't come up with anything.
It felt pretty on the nose for Congress to choose well the big party's going to be like, all right, let's get together and let's talk about how we're going to get them. Like
Yeah.
they just saved your ass in Judgment. Although I guess that was the whole point. Was Orcus is who publicly saved the day in Judgment Day. Steve Rogers being the centerpiece for the Uncanny Avengers kind of played out when we first got this cover. I thought it was going to be a team built around a new Captain Krakoa. I know we speculated for a while that it was going to be Havoc. I feel like as interesting as the villain Captain Krakoa is going to be, I would so rather have an Avengers team led by an X-Men in the Captain Krakoa suit. I feel like that would have been a really interesting story.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred that too. Obviously it's early speculation before seeing the story, but I agree with you.
Well, and it just feels busy that like we're essentially introduced to multiple villains theoretically, although I guess you can assume they're working together because you've got the Orcus Sentinels that show up at the end, and you've got Captain Krakoa doing his thing, and but it is a nice hint for whatever goes wrong at the gala, and they keep really hitting something big goes wrong, and if that's something in addition to all these little snippets we're already seeing, that means something really big is going to go on that overshadows all these other things we're seeing play out.
Yeah.
I like the gods pages too. Like I'm a sucker for Hickman, so I'm excited.
Me
It was
too.
only like a 3-page preview. It was really brief, but it's being advertised as Marvel's Sandman, so I feel
Hmm.
like that's a high bar for Hickman to set for himself. And
But
he's
I
also
feel like if anyone can do it,
absolutely. And he has said when he came back to Marvel, he wrote two like plot bibles. He wrote Krakoa and this. And so if this is of that caliber of the Krakoa idea, it could be pretty huge.
yeah.
Because Krakoa has completely changed the Marvel universe forever. I feel like
Oh, yeah. Undoubtedly.
that's why we have a podcast on the topic because
Yeah.
we think that. On the grand scale, it wasn't my favorite free comic book day issue we've
Nah.
ever gotten. It was just a pretty generic teaser. but it was fun, and
Yeah.
it definitely beat DC's. I'm not gonna go on a big detour, but oh my god, I have never been less into a like summer event being set up than I am for Night Terrors.
Yeah.
I am dropping that some of my books that are going on pause that I'm reading, and then like they're only going in pause in name and they're continuing through Night Terrors. I'm dropping. Like I'm just not going to read any DC that is tied to Night Terrors. I have zero
Same.
interest in it.
No interest at all.
I guess I suffered through. I remember you did you start and then drop, or did you not touch?
I didn't even touch Dark
Whatever it is.
Crisis.
Dark Crisis. I suffered through that. I powered through it. This is where I tap out.
Yeah.
I'll come back when they resume the new era of light and happy DC that lasted all of 5 months.
Yeah. So ridiculous.
Hey, bud.
Hmm.
Well, we're out here partying in the sun for Shark Girl Week. Do you want to like hula around the Marvel Universe?
Yeah.
I'll probably edit that joke out. Anyways, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Around
the Marvel Universe?
Scarlet Witch number 5. Any chance you read it?
I did.
Okay.
It was
It's the
fine.
end of the first arc. The majority issue does not matter.
Yeah.
The arc was dumb. We don't. That's mean. The arc was unimportant. Had nothing really to do with the X-Men on the whole. There's a reason it's coming out of the Avengers office. We got to talk about the last like 4 pages though.
Mm-hmm.
Speculation City right here. Basically, the main story ends with Wanda and Darcy being like, well, at least our lives will be simple again, you know? Wank, 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 wank. And that smash cuts to these 2 drunk teenagers like walking into this cave with their beers. Like, let's go hang out. And then hear noise like, oh no, it's a ghost. And then they just get smashed by what looked like makeshift ninja stars, just hunks of metal. So then they go fleeing, even though the art makes it look like they're straight up maimed, but then they're just running away. So I guess I didn't cut them that bad. But anyways, and a voice says, perhaps I am a ghost. What else do you call those who refuse to stay dead? And then you see on this like makeshift throne in the cave, a much younger Magneto just hanging out. Is this how they bring Magneto back? Is
Absolutely
this the
not.
return of Magneto?
Absolutely not. There is no chance. Zero chance. I'm willing to go on record. Zero chance that they bring Magneto back in like the last pages of a C tier book.
To be fair, they have been pushing this book, but on the Avengers side, this is actually one of their like top 10 sellers, and I don't
Is it
understand why.
really?
It's not great, but
It's not a good book.
I'm not in any way defending it. I'm just pointing out, like, from Marvel's perspective,
no.
this is not C tier, which is sad. But I don't think that means this is him. I do not believe it's him. I just more than anything had to point out how ridiculous it is that book outsells things like Sabretooth and the Exiles, which was like in the 140s or whatever it was.
That's upsetting.
To me, the only question is this Joseph? Is this the Magneto clone that we know that has already kind of been introduced as a moral dilemma when it comes to the 5 has decided some clones get to be revived, but they've never brought up Joseph? That would be really interesting. Or is this like new clone shenanigans? You know what I mean? Like this is definitely not true Magneto. So is this new doppelganger shenanigans, or is this bringing back up old, which would probably be Joseph? Like to me, there might have been other like fake Magnetos over the years. Like I guess it could be something with the Zorn brothers or something. Probably not. But or is it new? Like that to me is the only question in my mind. There's no way this is the true Magneto, right?
No chance.
There's no way in hell.
I'm sure we'll find out in the next issue.
Well, did you read any of the Joseph era stuff?
No.
Let me see if I can find a picture. He was often separated because they gave him nice long hair instead of the short hair. So that's how you knew it was him. But he was. I could see it being Joseph. I could also see it being something completely fresh. Either way, hard stamp. I will I will do the one chip challenge if somehow that is the true Magneto. On an episode of Arakko Public Radio.
I'll do it with you. If that
All
is
right.
the real Magneto, we will both do the one chip challenge.
All right, that's fair. All right. Next up, not next week, but on the next episode of Shark Girl Week. Shark Girl Week. Woo! We're talking Rogan Gambit number 3, X-Men Red number 11, Wolverine number 33, Captain Marvel 49, and the Invincible Iron Man number 6. Speaking of Shark Girl Week, we have reopened the Arakko Public Radio shop with exclusive Shark Girl Week 2023 merchandise exclusively available for just this week. Get summer started the right way and support the podcast you missed like hell for the last month by hitting the link and grabbing yourself, I don't know, a tank top or a frisbee. Woo, summer. Anything else, buddy?
I don't think so. I think that's it.
Okay. Until next time, I'm that nerdy Papa Bear on all your social media, except for Twitter, where you have to take off the VAT because they have a character limit. This guy's Bulk Ranger everywhere, and he picked a short enough name. He doesn't have to play that game. We have a Discord server, also linked down there. We had a couple new members in our month-long absence, which was kind of awkward because I'd be like, hey, welcome. We're not putting out episodes right now. But you know what? We are on summer break. The kids aren't here for another month when we'll probably have another short hiatus or just episodes coming in late. I don't know what that'll look like yet. So for now, we're going to go back to regular releases. We're back in your lives for a little while, so join that Discord server. And until next time, there's no way that's fucking Magneto.
There's no way.